Okay, good evening, everyone. As you know, we were in recess from last Tuesday evening, which was the 14th, and we're continuing on with City Council, the subcommittee of the City Council, which is the Budget Committee. And I want to recognize all councilors who are attending tonight. I failed to do that last week, my apologies. But kicking it off is our Vice President, Councilor Buzzy Barton. Thank you for joining us, Councilor. Councilor of Ward 5, Diana Chakutis, thank you for being here, Councilor. And Councilor at Large, Brian Field, again, thank you, Councilor Field. And Councilor of Ward 6, Fred Hogan, as well as Councilor of Ward 2, Rick Starbird. So I really want to thank my colleagues for being a part of this. As you know, we'll go right down the list of various departments within City Hall and give everyone an opportunity to speak about their budget and their department and have the opportunity of councilors to ask questions. I would also be remiss if I didn't recognize the mayor. I saw the mayor come in earlier this evening. Thank you, Mayor, for being with us. And his is also a department that we'll be hearing from later in the agenda. And also he'll be speaking to us as a council of the whole next Tuesday night, the 28th, when he puts forth his vision and an overview of the total budget for the city of Lynn. So without further ado, I think we'll get going with a roll call.
Roll call. Councilor LaPierre.
Present.
Present. Councilor Lozey. Absent. Councilor Starbird.
Present.
Present. Councilor Field.
Present.
Present. Councilor Hogan.
Present.
Okay, thank you very much. We're first starting out with the Inspectional Services Department / the dog officer. So is Mike Donovan or someone, Mike, come on up. You can go right to the podium if you want, Mike, if it's easier for you with the lectern, and can address any questions we may have on the ISD budget. And if you want to just give a little overview or the philosophy of your budget, and that would be great as well. Also, welcome Councilor Hongnet as well to these proceedings. The floor is yours, Mr. Donovan.
Good evening, councilors.
Good evening.
Evening.
The Inspectional Services Department, as you know, the budget is the Health Division, Facilities Division, and Building Inspectional, Health, and Facilities. In addition, there is the dog officer and the streetlights. Let me start off with the streetlights. There's very good news coming on the streetlight side. Our conversion of the streetlights is almost complete. It's scheduled to be completed by the end of May. As a result, that budget has gone down from well over $1 million a few years ago to $720,000 to reflect the energy savings and the maintenance savings that we'll be saving through this LED conversion. The lifespan of the bulbs is much greater than the current facility. So that's very good news from the streetlight budget. The dog officer budget is level funded. There are no changes there. And on the inspectional side, we have, my budget is divided into two portions, the school side and the city side in regards to the facilities. We have seen an increase on the school side by a little over $1.5 million or so to reflect the ability to do more work within the schools, to improve the schools, the conditions within the schools as best we can. On the city side, there's been a slight decrease. Staffing level remains the same as it was last year, and there's a slight decrease in our expenses, but nothing that we can't work around and work through. At this point, I'm available to answer any questions anybody may have.
Councilor Starbird.
Thank you. Mike, the decrease in salaries, is there, but you said it's the same number of positions?
Yes, so we had some positions, some temporary positions funded, temporary clerical people, an emergency employee, and one position that carried over another emergency employee that we're just not filling this year.
And I saw that there was no overtime for the dog officer.
No, sir, that same as last year. There is no overtime for the dog officer. It's a situation that at some point we need to come to a resolution. There used to be, I don't want to call them mutual aid agreements, but agreements between the City of Lynn and other communities with, if the dog officer wasn't in, somebody from the other community would come in to help out for pay. And that routine is no longer with us. They no longer wish to come to the City of Lynn, and they don't.
So if an emergency arises,
If an emergency, and I'm not using that word loosely, if truly an emergency arose, then, assuming the dog officer was in town, we would get him to where he needed to be. But we have lots of calls, and the call to pick up a dead animal on the side of the road is not an emergency. An emergency, to me, would have to be something essentially life-threatening. Yeah, out of control, not a routine call that there's a dog barking, that there's a dead animal somewhere and it needs to be picked up. So, and that probably is 99% of the calls. So there is no overtime this year.
thank you, Mike.
Any other questions, Mr. Donovan? Yes, Councilor Field.
Mr. Chairman, Mike, just again on the personnel side to follow up on Councilor Starbird's question. I know maybe halfway through this past fiscal year, there was a discussion that we were kind of caught off guard as far as the hours within the office. Limited hours, do you see anything or forecast anything like that, throughout this next fiscal year? We kind of caught everybody off guard, and we kind of got a little bit of a few phone calls in regards to that type of situation.
No, sir, assuming the situation stays the same as it is now, as it's budgeted, and I don't foresee any changes in office hours this year.
I would just like to highlight some of the things that the ISD did over the course of the year. They've responded to over 3,000 complaints. They've performed over 16,000 inspections. They've issued 9,500 permits, and they've collected approximately $1 million in fees. So they're really a big revenue producer for the city in terms of the work that they do. So, any other questions? Councilor Starboard.
I'd just like to make a statement. I think I echo the sentiments of the whole council, but how responsive your department's been. And it makes our job a heck of a lot easier. I think you guys have done a great job with the staff that you have. And so I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilor. I appreciate it. They do too.
Great. Ditto from Councilor Calucci.
Ditto.
You're in high regard, Mike. Ditto from Councilor Field. And welcome, Councilor Calucci. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Have a good evening, councilors.
You too. Okay, for the Lynn Council of Aging, we're going to have Mike Bertino come up to do that presentation.
Thank you. Again, Mike Bertino, CFO. The Council on Aging has been funded at the same level as last year, and we have the same agreement in place. And we expect all the same activities to continue down there without interruption.
Any questions for the Lynn Council on Aging? Seeing none? Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
Moving right along, Department of Public Works, Commissioner Hall.
Good evening, councilors. Thanks for having me. As you all know, the DPW is responsible for the streets, paving and sidewalks, street trees, the curbside collection of solid waste and recycling, parks and cemeteries, and the motor pool. The big change in our budget this year is an increase in the snow and ice budget to, years past, the snow and ice budget has historically been underfunded, and it's more in line with reality this year. So that's why you see the big jump on the snow and ice line. Any questions?
Councilor Starboard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. More along the lines of Chapter 90. Do you know what we could expect from that?
We get just shy of 1.5 million from Chapter 90.
Is that an increase over last year?
It's a decrease from last year. Yeah, slight, by like $35.
And so how many, putting that towards streets, is there a formula of what that equates to in miles of repaving streets?
I'm sure there is, but it's not something I can quote you right here.
All right, thank you. And again, just like with ISD, because I think all of us counselors, our calls are either going to you or they're going to ISD, and your staff does a tremendous job addressing the concerns under the budget constraints that we have, so.
Thanks, that's nice to hear.
Aren't we trying to match it to on the city side, the Chapter 90 money, to make it 3 million, or is it just a straight 1.5 from the state?
It's the money, it's the straight 1.5 from the state. If the capital plan, is that, maybe Mike can speak to that. There's talk of it
I see.
being added to by the city coffers.
That's where we'd like to be, where we double the state grant.
Mike Bertino again, CFO. That's correct. The mayor is committed to increasing the funding so we can match it, so we can get twice as many square feet done as we can just through Chapter 90. It's going to take us a little time, but it's on the radar, and we hope to get it sooner than later.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Council Field.
Thank you. It's a little lopsided on the seesaw tonight, 4 on one side, 1 on the other. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Hall. A couple of quick questions. As far as this year implementing the trash fee, how much did that offset those types of costs as far as on the expense part of it? And then I'll ask the second question after.
It's anticipated to offset the cost by 1/3, the trash fee.
You don't see an increase in that come in the near future, correct?
Well, it's a tricky question. These costs, we have a 3% baked-in increase on our sanitation costs every year. And we're at the mercy of the recycling market at the moment, which is, could pose a problem. But right now, the fee is still $90 per unit.
And how much did
I don't want to rule out raising it, but as of right now, no.
Now, as far as waste management's increase this year, what was that?
3%.
3%? Okay. And you talked about the recycling. Can you just touch on that a little bit more? As far as
Sure. The material is worth money. So in the past, that has offset the cost of collecting it. The markets have somewhat collapsed. So where we used to pay a discounted rate for the picking up of the recycling, we now pay basically more than we pay to dispose of a ton of trash on a per-ton basis.
right. And you're seeing an improvement as far as the recycling citywide?
Yes, we have the recycling team out for 8 weeks over the summer, and they're cruising around checking out what people have out at the curb, and they'll put an oops tag on a cart that's got the plastic bags of improper stuff in there, and if that doesn't work, we'll give them a fine, basically. So we need to control what goes to the single stream plant from our end to control costs, basically.
And my final question, I know last year with the severe flooding, Councilor LaPierre and I had requested a curbside collection, and that was discussed at will right after that flooding, citywide flooding. How much of a cost is there a finite cost right now that cost the city? How much it did cost to do that one-time curbside collection of those materials rather than just comparing it to what we do on those Saturdays a couple of times a year with the dumpster days and that overall one-time curbside collection to kind of,
It was on the order of $50,000.
Cost the city, so that maybe if we explore it somewhere down the line as doing it one time a year or having a rainy day fund to kind of improve, to plan ahead so that we're not caught off guard on those types of situations. They're going to happen. These 100-year storms seem to be happening once, twice a year now. And I think the community responded well. They requested it upon us. I know I got several calls. I know a lot of my colleagues got a lot of calls. People lost a lot of items in their home. And I think if we had discussed something similar to a dumpster day, I think it would have failed. I'm happy that we were able to do the curbside collection, but I just want to know what that cost the city, if you know what that cost is, and maybe explore it somewhere in the future to do it once a year, an annual, how much of an expense that would be on the city.
Okay, so it's not included in this budget, a curbside collection. It was on the order of $50,000, the curbside after the storm back in August of last year.
That's just for the collection, or is that for the overall cost of?
Collection and disposal.
Okay.
But I'm hesitant to head down that road just because the old way of Lynn's trash collection is unsustainable. And if you start collecting everything people put out, we'll go broke.
No, it's just thinking ahead, if we're planning to fund snow and ice, and if there's a surplus somewhere and we can fund one collection a year, if you say it's $50,000, the inconvenience for people parking all the way down the Linway a couple times a year, maybe that's an option. And it's just thinking ahead and how much that could be included in next year's budget or somewhere along the line in this year's budget. Something to think about.
Certainly.
Thank you.
On that line, do we have a partnership with Covanta again?
Yes, we do. As of just recently, we're shifting from the 3 dumpster days a year to 6 Covanta events to spread it out over a little. Again, what we do now, we try to accommodate everyone, and it's not sustainable.
Right. And that's through a grant, as I understand it, a generous grant?
No longer. No,
No
that's
longer.
that's part of the budget.
So it's been budgeted at least?
Yes.
But in the past, we've had that.
In the past, the Geronilus Foundation ponied
Right.
up some money to offset the cost of that.
So we're
yes.
taking that on to keep the services in place.
Yeah, it was a good pilot. We kind of saw what the cost, what it cost basically, and
Right.
decided we could do it ourselves.
Excellent, great, thank you. Any other questions? Councilor Net?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question. I know some streets have been paved for 30-plus years. Do we have any fund to put aside to do that at all?
No, we have the Chapter 90 funds, Chapter 90 funds, about $1.5 million per year, and then there's about $100,000, $108,000 for bituminous materials for my men to do, pothole repairs and sidewalk repairs and small-scale repairs.
Thank you.
Well, we can file this under squeaky wheel gets the grease, because there's a gentleman named Bill Noble who constantly badges me for Poplar Street.
Poplar Street, yeah.
You know it off the top of your head even. It's a
certainly do.
small little, but he knew I would see you tonight, so there's his shout out to try and get Poplar done this summer. It's Council Walsh in Ward 7, but he'll appreciate the shout out. I know our colleagues will appreciate it too, because when he bugs me, he bugs everybody. So it's equal opportunity, squeaky wheel kind of stuff. But if we could ever find a little tar for Poplar, that would go a long way. Thank you, Commissioner Hall. Any other questions?
I-
Okay, moving right along. Let's go to Mr. Leonard in purchasing. Tim, welcome.
Good evening, thanks for having me. Although my budget isn't as big as some of the departments we're listening to today, since coming here a year ago, I believe my department can help save all the departments some money. Since starting, I'm trying to build on better communication with all the departments so I can understand all their procurement needs. With this approach, being more hands-on with better communication, I think we can lead towards better purchases and lead to a central purchasing process. Over the year, we've been looking to grow more efficiently by dealing with a lot of issues that used to be done paper-wise. Now we're going more digital. This is through email, scanning, e-bidding, and looking for the upcoming fiscal year. You'll see in my budget, there's an $8,000 increase to my budget for e-signing. This would take care of all the paper trails and the routing of contracts through all the departments where it requires at least 5 or 6 signatures. This would all be done through a software where electronic signature would be added just by email, by phone, speeding up the process by at least 30 days. I've seen some contracts disappear and not come back for 30, 40 days. And the good part about this is, if someone's holding it up, we'll know exactly where it is. So if you look at my budget, like I said, it's not a lot, but that is the increase. If you notice, I think a 700% increase to my budget. That's it. It's just that number. But if anybody has any questions on what we're doing digitally with e-bidding and what that is, or e-signing, I can answer those questions.
Thank you. Councilor Stabbit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ran into your predecessor yesterday. Retirement's doing him very well.
I'm sure it is.
And I'm glad to hear you're going to e-signing. When I was on the school committee,
Yes.
that was something I used to ask about all the time, is we would have to run down to sign
Yes,
warrants.
yes, this will streamline that for sure.
Now, I noticed a little bit of a bump in salaries. Are you adding a position?
I currently have an additional person now, but someone has given me their leave date of February of next year. So right now, the person that's been added to the department is training, and when the other person leaves, we'll streamline right into everything we're doing now. I've already had this year one new person, so the fact that we have two people still under a year and someone leaving, this additional person who came from another department will help streamline everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Leonard? Seeing none. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, Lynn School Department, Dr. Tutwiler.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. So quickly, you do not have a budget book from the school department. We're finalizing that in preparation for a formal presentation to school committee on the 30th, and we will have a budget book to you early next week. I can give you the sort of the big picture, which is that we're working from a number of 159.3. That's the budget is built on that number. That represents a 7.25% increase from the previous fiscal year. As you might imagine, that will allow us to maintain all of our staff, in fact, add in ways that are much needed. It'll allow us to meet all of our contractual obligations with respect to steps and lanes, longevity, transportation, things of that nature. But it will also allow us to meet some of the district improvement goals around overcrowding. We have a solution for that short term as it is. This budget allows for that. It allows us to continue to meet or to get closer to compliance around meeting the needs of our English learners and students who are on IEPs. And it also allows us to implement a social and emotional learning program for grades K to 5. And of course, we're using this budget to address our ever-growing student population, so it also includes the addition of teachers. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? Councilor Stabbit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What are how have the numbers gone up from September of opening the school to the end of the year? How many students have we picked up in that time?
Right, so I don't have that number. I can tell you from January to approximately 2 weeks ago, we saw an increase of 239. Of course, you know, from September to January, we certainly enrolled more students. I don't have that number right now, but it's on the order of, you know, approaching 500 or more.
And what's the number, is it 18 million that we're hoping to get an increase from the state?
So that was the increase that the Senate Ways and Means Committee proposed. It's not final yet. We're operating on the governor's budget. I think this number came from the governor's budget.
Thank you, Dr. Tucker.
My pleasure.
I think you're doing a phenomenal job as
Thank you.
the job you all do.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Net.
Chairman, thank you, Doctor. So what is projection about net school spending this year? You think we do all right? Will be met?
Yeah, so I mean, I new in the role, I can only go on history, and it was met last year. And in our conversations with the CFO and the mayor, we believe that number will meet net school spending. But that's maybe a better question for the CFO and the mayor.
Any other questions? I'd just like to offer, again, yeoman's work in your first year on the job and presenting, and we look forward to see the full budget. An area that I've been trying to push on our end, on the city end, and I think you're going to be sensitive to it as well. This winter, Officer Magna made a nice presentation to your school committee on the crossing guard situation in the city of Lynn. And it's gone from 150 way back in the 80s down to 100 and now down to 49. These are very low-wage workers. They're retirees for the most part. They have odd hours because it's only 10 hours a week. It's an hour or two in the morning and an hour in the afternoon at 13 an hour. And really a lot of it's around winter equipment and clothing allowances and things. We're very hopeful that, and I think you'll maybe be able to tackle some of this in your budget discussions, trying to not only increase that number, but have reliable substitutes on call for these positions in dangerous intersections. And similarly with day-to-day subs, you've heard a lot of talk about that, and I know that's ongoing on the work on that. But trying to find, and I asked the chief this last week as well, trying to find little extra dollars, like a $25,000 or $50,000 line item for that particular group is like $1 million to them. So we can get a lot done with very little resources from perhaps the school, on the school department's end. So if you could just consider that and look into that with your colleagues over on the other side, we'd greatly appreciate it. See an increase, maybe raise their wage a bit to 15 an hour, because that's the trend of where this is going, for the work they perform. So I hope you'll be sensitive to that. And
Indeed.
Thank you. No, thank you very much. Okay. So, can't read my own writing here. Oh, Solicitor's Office. Attorney Markopoulos, welcome.
Good evening, councilors. My name is George Markopoulos, City Solicitor, Law Department. Our budget is essentially the same as last year. What do? The Law Department represents the City of Lynn in a $368 million municipal corporation. In legal matters, we represent the council, the mayor, every department, board, and commission. We deal very regularly with federal and state agencies. We deal with businesses, developers, and the public. We have submitted a detailed summary with our budget, but I would just like to take a few minutes to highlight some impact areas that we've been focusing on. First, partnership with the Attorney General's office. Most recently, we have partnered with the Attorney General and the Lynn Housing Authority to focus on derelict, dangerous properties in the city of Lynn in neighborhoods that affect the quality of life. The second thing that we have been focusing on for years, and hopefully will come to a conclusion shortly, is the Lynn Woods. We are working with the Essex County Greenbelt and the Department of Conservation Restriction to realize and complete the council's order of obtaining this conservation restriction. The bike path, we're working with various state agencies to effectuate a municipal bike path to the sea, which will connect several cities and towns to the beach. Marijuana. Marijuana is a brand new area of law in the state of Massachusetts, and we're learning it, and we're dealing with all the associated issues that come with marijuana. Wage Theft Advisory Committee. We've been working quite a bit on that to make sure that the council's ordinance and purposes within the ordinance are effectuated. Economic development and planning. We're working with various city departments and others, including the EDIC, in economic development, planning issues, and anything related to it. We've developed RFIs, requests for information, RFPs, requests for proposals. We've used these in evaluating proposals for the Marshall School and the Gannon Golf Course. Another item that's quite important in our office is liens, fines, and sales. We've assisted various city departments in recovering municipal liens, fines, and conducted sales of property through the council, specifically the Public Property Committee, and have collected approximately $1 million. Protocols, practices, and procedures. We are constantly developing and updating our protocols, practices, and procedures to operate in the most professional, effective, and efficient possible way. What is our goal? Our goal has been, is, and always will be to deliver the best possible legal services that we can for the City of Lynn. I'd like to thank the council and the mayor for all your support. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Questions for Attorney Markopoulos? Council Staben.
Mr. Chairman, just a statement. Once again, a department that I work a lot with as the Chair of Public Properties, and the timeliness in which they respond and get things done, as well as educate me along the way and deal with some unique neighbor issues as well that have cropped up since I've been on. I really appreciate all the hard work that you and your staff do.
Thank you.
Well, I would echo those sentiments, in particular, the successful defense of what potentially could have been a $35 million court case and damages that they were successful in defending. And it's an award-winning law office with Councilor Lamanna as well. So we thank you all for your great work. Okay, Veterans, Director Sweeney.
Thank you for having me here. The Lynn Department of Veteran Services is really a one-stop shop. We're really proud of what we do. Under Massachusetts general law, every community in the Commonwealth is mandated to have a Veteran Service Office, veterans agent or director of veteran services, a veteran, to be there so when veterans and their families need assistance in the community, they have someone to go to. Our budget this year is, as it is every year, is primarily the benefits we give out, which are called Chapter 115 benefits, under that general law that they're named. We're reimbursed 75% a year later for those expenditures, as my phone goes off. Turn that off. But for personnel, it's only about 19% of the budget. Primarily, we're Chapter 115 benefits that are mandated and staff. And with that staff, what we do is we serve thousands of veterans and their families. And if you wanted to include dependents, we're looking at tens of thousands, really. Whether it's VA disability benefits, access to VA health care. And when I say one-stop shop, Mass Health, we work with just about every city agency and entity, and we're proud to do that. And we get it, and they help us, almost like, as I would call it, a force multiplier. They help us provide services for other people in the city. First among them would be the Lynn Housing Authority. One of the things we've done and I'm proud of is being the only community in the Commonwealth to have effectively ended veterans' homelessness, according to the VA. We wouldn't have been able to do that on our own. The Lynn Housing Authority has been really a resource that we use continually to make sure that veterans don't end up on the street. When you go top to bottom, whether it's retirement, the assessor's office, the DPW, I think we're really lucky. I think maybe if I'm being a little bit of a cheerleader, I don't mean to, but we're really lucky to have the professionals we work with in the city, and they've been an awful lot of help, to include the council and the mayor's office and providing those resources for us. What I will end with is a shameless promotion for people to show up to the Memorial Day parade and ceremony this coming Monday. As we enter into this week, Memorial Day, sometimes we end up, it's sometimes the beginning of summer, but I think and this council has always put that, and the city has always put what Memorial Day really is about at the fore, which is remembering the fallen. So I want to thank you for that. So with that, if there's any questions.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions? Councilor Staben.
Thank you. Mike, I think what you and your staff does, and then it rolls down from the mayor's office, I don't think anybody recognizes and represents veterans as much as Lynn does. Thank you. You guys do a great job. But last year, I remember hearing something about taking on the work from Swampscott, and was that right? Yes,
and we have been working over there. We haven't, the details haven't been finalized, but we've been providing those services, and we've been able to do that without any adverse effect on what we're doing here. But as of now, we provide the services for the community of Swampscott. Not as of now, currently and moving forward. And it's been actually a very, very good opportunity.
And as part of that, do they contribute back?
They do, and that's something maybe the details of which have not been finalized, but that's absolutely going to happen. And so what we have is the that intermunicipal agreement not only needs to be approved, which it has been, and some of the details, but then the state would have to approve it for it to move forward. That way, communities can't just enter into an agreement with another community. So once we finalize some of the details, the state then has to authorize it. In terms of providing the services, that has been going on. We've been doing that since day one in a real good faith way, and I think it really has, in a way, added to what we've been able to do, because we've been able to be a little bit more regional and being able to see things and maybe add to what we do in our office.
So that agreement's forthcoming?
Yes, it is.
We kind of operate on a shoestring as it is.
Sure. No, absolutely. I think long-term, too, it's a way, not only it's a way to maybe, we operate on a shoestring, but I would say that the people that we have are outstanding, and I think it'd be a way to kind of recognize that, too, for them in terms of retention. But I do think that in terms of the details, that should be squared away relatively soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Council Field.
Just want to echo Councilor Starbird's comments that, Lynn is second to none when it comes to serving the veterans. The job you do, the mayor's office, everyone.
Thank you.
And I think that's reflective in the attendance at the events that you do have, that we do host.
Thank you.
Memorial Day, but a number of the events hosted here in Memorial Hall, so kudos to you and your staff.
Thank you. And they work hard, and I said Mary Cronin, Debbie Smalley is in there now, and I'll tell you, I'm lucky to have them. They're very hard workers.
Thank you. I can attest to, I fully agree. My dad has utilized your offices, and you've accommodated him greatly in his being a veteran, and my mom and so forth. And the consultation you provide is really second to none, so thank you from a personal level.
Thank you. Proud to do that. Thank you.
Great. Anything else? All right, move right along. Thank you, Mike. Just with respect to not having the full council here, I think we'll reserve on the council budget itself. We'll have plenty of debate next week, and therefore, so just going to go ahead on that with respect to Council President Seer, who may want to offer his take on our budget. So we'll just move right along to the mayor. His honor is here. Joined by Megan, Chief of Staff, Megan Hamill. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening on behalf of Mayor McGee and our team in the Mayor's office. Our budget for FY20 is level funded on the expense side and decreased slightly on the payroll side compared to our FY19 budget. Last year, we included funding for 2 additional staff in our office. Due to the ongoing fiscal constraints, we chose not to fill those positions. As our CFO, Mike Bertino, explained during the first budget hearing last week, part of the solution for closing the FY20 budget gap was removing unfilled positions from a handful of departments, including the mayor's office. As you all know, our office consists of 4 staff people. A recent inquiry into 6 cities similar to our population revealed mayor's offices that are staffed with a minimum of 6 or more employees. This budget retains 1 salary for a 5th staff person, which will increase our ability to provide a higher level of constituent, business, and overall services to the community. The mayor is responsible for the overall operation of city government, appointing and managing department staff, as well as board and commission members, developing and submitting the annual budget and 5-year capital plan to the council, approving all contracts, and recommending bond issuance. The mayor and our office is engaged in promoting the economic development vision of the city, supporting 21st century student learning at all educational levels, ensuring public infrastructure and facilities projects are advanced, and partnering with the state and federal elected officials on mutual goals. The office is active in highlighting outstanding achievements by residents, students, and business owners through citations, proclamations, and grand openings, communicating important information to the public through social media and press releases, and planning and executing a variety of special events for the community that positively impact local economy, build civic pride and engagement, and improve the overall quality of life of all members of the community. The budget book provides you and the public with more specific highlights and initiatives our team has been working on this past year and our goals for the upcoming fiscal year. All of those items would not be possible without the ongoing close collaboration with every department, the council, and the school committee. The mayor looks forward to speaking before you next week. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time. And again, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight.
Thank you, Megan. Questions, comments from the councilors? Seeing none? Oh, Council Starbott, just got it up. Just in time, Council.
Staff's been great to work with. and,
Great.
Right down the line.
Thank you.
A compliment. Thank you, Megan. We look forward to the mayor next week presenting before the full council. Okay, that is everybody, and I would entertain a motion to accept. Do we want to?
Yep.
Motion to accept these budget hearings. We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries, and now motion to? Adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor?
St. Louis.
Yeah, this is fine.